Pounding the meat, we are live, baby. Woo! I'm Vinny Vegas. Good evening, guys. Thank God it's Friday. And I got a dope ass guest for you tonight. Mr. Chris Van Vliet in the building. He's ready to kill it. Man, I was talking to him backstage a little bit. Man, his setup is clean, bro. He's a clean dude. He's got swag for days, man. Swag for days. I tell you. Ethan, what's up, man? Let's go. How are you, buddy? How are you? Joey V at the bar drinking. I'm with you, fam. Have a drink. Have a drink for me, man. I need a couple. Pablo, good evening, bro. How are you, man? Mike, good evening. Hello, how are you? Thanks for watching. All right, let me bring on my guest, man. This guy's a legend and a G. And he's definitely entertaining and fun to watch. You got to check out his YouTube channel. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you the one and only Mr. Chris Van Vliet.
Wow. Woo! We got an audience here. I love that. Vinny Vegas, thank you so much for having me on.
Hey, man, no problem, dude. Thank you for being here. Thanks for
being
giving of your time and just hanging out, man. What is going on, man? How you been?
Things are great. I'm blown away by the production value of your show. Like I feel like
listen, man. Listen, thank you.
I need to step my game up a lot now.
Listen, man, you got the content though. Let me tell you something. I was going through your channel. You've interviewed everybody. Everybody. And they're great. I just saw the MJF interview not too long ago.
So sorry. You had to see that.
Let me tell you something. That was funny. That was great.
He's the worst. I hate that guy. Everyone's always like, when are you going to do another interview with MJF? I'm like, hopefully never.
Yo, that was great. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how you got into the business, just a little bit.
Sure.
You know, you were a cameraman, right? You were.
If we take it way back,
on the radio in Cleveland,
and
then you jumped into the Indies, pro wrestling, and you were an announcer there.
Yep.
So give me a little background on how you got into the entertainment business. What drew you to it?
I mean, if we take it all the way back, it really began with just a passion, right? Like it began with a passion of like, I was drawn to radio and I was drawn to television. And when I was 4 years old, I had a Fisher-Price tape recorder and would pretend to be a radio announcer, like on cassette tapes. Like we take it all the way back there.
Yeah.
In high school, we had a communication studies class where we actually made like TV segments and like news segments. And then when it came time to apply for college, I'm like, well, that communication studies class, that was pretty fun. I guess I could do that.
Yeah.
And I went to college for communication studies, but you know, it wasn't leading me on that path to broadcasting. So Vinny, I had this epiphany in my senior year of college. I loved college, right? College was so much fun. I lived with 4 of my best friends. We drank copious amounts of beer. And it just hit me one day that when we graduated, it was all over. Like I was going to have to work for the next 40, 50 years of my life.
Yeah.
And that was where I like had this moment where I'm like, I just want to not hate my job. Like that, the goal is to like, I want to have a job that I am not like, oh my God, I got to go to work tomorrow. So that was it. I reached out to every radio station, every TV station in my college town and just said, can I come in and see how it's done? Like, can I volunteer and watch you guys do it in the real world? And this one radio station, TV station said, sure, we take on volunteers all the time. Like, come on in. And that's where I was a cameraman, VTR, audio, floor director, did all the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
Then I was on the street team for this radio station. I was handing out like stickers and buttons at different events. One of them actually was a WWE house show. And then this other radio station said, we don't take on volunteers, but how would you like a job? I'm like, wow. Okay. So they brought me on as a board operator. So I ran like the soundboard for a bunch of different radio talk shows. That's where really it all began. And then when I graduated, I looked for an internship. I got an internship at a super small station that was about an hour from where I lived. So an hour from my parents' house where I was living. I was driving an hour each way. I was working my high school job at the pet store at the mall, in the fish department. So
when they had pet stores in the mall. I remember that. Yeah. At least
the
in my
old
mall,
days,
it's
right?
gone. Yeah, they're gone now.
I
But
was in the fish department scooping up fish for people and scooping the dead ones out
yeah,
to pay for the gas to get to my internship. So that's
yeah.
really where it all began. And that internship ended up turning into a job. And it was a job where you're a multimedia journalist, an MMJ, or a one-man band, as they call it. You're
Mhm.
shooting the stories, the big camera on your shoulder.
Yep.
You're editing the stories. And at the time, it was tape to tape, like old school.
Oh,
Like,
oh my God. Yeah, I
yeah,
remember that.
you're writing the stories, you're producing the stories, and then you're on TV as well. So, man, I really learned every single aspect behind the scenes, which gives me such a great appreciation for how all of it works.
Behind the scenes is definitely my favorite because that's where you can actually just put the whole story together.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? You can film
Yeah.
pieces out of order, completely scattered and random, but then you put together this beautiful story in the editing room.
Yeah,
You know
and
what
I
I mean?
think what really blows me away about broadcasting is at the end of the day, it's storytelling.
Right.
So, if you and I were to go out and some amazing thing happened to us tonight, you would go back to your family and your friends and tell the story one way, and I'd go back to my family and my friends and tell the story another way.
Right.
But neither story is right, and neither story is wrong, and that's what's so fascinating about it to me.
Bro, it's the best, man. It's the best. I mean, it's kind of geeky, but I love it.
No,
I love
I
the
love it
editing
too.
room. I love the editing room. All
I
right.
love it
So
too.
you
So that's
now
really where it all began. And then from there, I ended up getting a job on MTV2 in
that's
Canada.
right. Yeah, yeah.
This is 2006, and that's where the entertainment stuff really started coming in. I started interviewing musicians, actors. That's where I did my first wrestling interview with Bobby Lashley, and it
Wow.
just kind of started snowballing from there.
So you were can you remember your first like major interview for MTV2? Like
Absolutely.
all
That
right,
was
who
my
was it?
my second day there. So the
Okay.
first day was like, you're filling out the paperwork and all that stuff. The
Yeah.
second day, I spent an entire day with the rapper Chingy. Remember Chingy? Right there, right there. I spent the entire day, and this is a funny thing. I was there for an entire year, and I never did this like follow someone around for a day thing, but I spent a whole day with Chingy, picked him up from the airport, went to he did all his press. He went shopping for like some clothes. He did an autograph signing. Spent the entire day with him. And yeah, that was the first like real, I was just thrown into the wolves. And the crazy thing, Vinny, was
Yeah.
I felt like I belonged. Like I felt like I didn't feel like out of my element at all. I was just like, yeah, cool. This is what day 2 of work looks like. Can't wait for what day 3 is.
What was it like to hang out for a whole day with Chingy?
Right. I mean, I was in his like black SUV with him. Like it was crazy. What was so crazy about it
Yeah.
is watching he was at his peak of fame at that point, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it was crazy seeing how the fans reacted to him. That was wild. Like we went to this mall where there was an autograph signing,
Oh
and
my
the
God.
line went all the way through the mall, all the way outside. And I was just
Yeah.
like, they're all here for this one guy who I'm sitting next to right now.
And the thing was that still back then, social media wasn't really a thing.
Yeah, it was just
You know?
MySpace.
So yeah, MySpace, right?
Yeah.
So nowadays, people don't really go to places to see their favorites. They can see it right online. They can
Yeah.
interact with them online.
Yeah.
Back then, remember they would shut down Times
Yeah.
Square
Yeah.
for TRL.
Yeah. Well, in
You know?
reality, nobody's going anywhere anymore.
Yeah,
Right?
right now, especially. Yeah, but I mean, it's crazy back then. I feel like back then it was just more insane. When
I
people would
actually
go,
auditioned to be the host of TRL in
get the
2000.
hell out of here, really?
So it was obviously Carson Daly for years and years and years. He's a
Yeah,
legend, right?
the legend.
And it
Yeah,
was Damian Fahey for many years. And
Yep.
Damian was leaving, and they were looking for a new host. And it was down to me and one other guy. I had the audition in Times Square, went through the whole
Bro.
thing. And I was like, I was just waiting on the edge of my seat. Am I going to get this job or not? 6
Yeah.
weeks later, they canceled the show.
Man,
So nobody got the job.
but dude, to be one of the last two
Yeah, it was
to be on
cool.
TRL, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hold on, we
So
got
it's
a
been a
comment.
fun ride, man. I'm so incredibly grateful. You are a liar, CJ. That's awesome.
Listen, she goes, that is lit.
I like the way
Okay.
you do that right there.
She still has her MySpace.
I bet we all still have our MySpace.
It's somewhere. It's
If
somewhere
we
in
go
the
looking
cloud.
for it.
Didn't Justin Timberlake buy MySpace and then try and turn it into like some music
Yeah.
centric place?
That's probably one of his, less successful ventures.
And then what was his clothing brand? I forget what the clothing brand was.
Oh, it's named after like his grandmother.
William Rast.
Right. Or grandfather.
Yeah. It was lit for like a year. And now it's like in Target and stuff like,
Justin Timberlake can do no wrong. That
he's
guy
a G. He's a G.
So talented in everything that he does.
Speaking of Justin Timberlake and boy bands, all right. I saw your interview with the one and only Chris Kirkpatrick, bro.
Yeah.
And he talked about what his reaction was to being in that Eminem song.
Yeah.
Chris Kirkpatrick, you can get your ass kicked. What was his reaction? That was a dope segment. I thought it was awesome.
Thank you. And I've been, obviously a lot of people know me for doing wrestling interviews, but for many, many, many years before that, I was interviewing musicians and comedians and actors and directors. And then, I was kind of just doing the wrestling interviews whenever they were convenient. I'd be working for a TV show, WWE or Impact or Ring of Honor would come to town.
Right.
We would do a wrestling interview because I was a wrestling fan. And secretly I was like, so I'm going to get paid to hang out with wrestlers? Like, sign me up for that.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Remember the first time it was in Vancouver when I was hosting that show on MTV2. I remember asking my boss, I'm like, would we ever be able to interview a wrestler? And she's like, yeah, we've done that many times. Of course. I'm like,
oh my
God.
Oh my God.
So wrestlers were once or twice a year for me. And then it was like 5 years ago. I'm like, well, there's a lot of indie shows that have a lot of big wrestling names. Mm-hmm. Why don't I start, it was more like probably 7 or 8 years ago. Why don't I start doing interviews at those shows? Then why don't I start bringing a camera to WrestleMania and like just trying to get as many interviews as I could. So bringing this back around, the Chris Kirkpatrick interview was just kind of like, I'm fascinated by people who are at the top of their game, right? I'm fascinated by like finding out like every successful person like has something in common with other successful people. So I just want to figure out what those common traits are. So fascinating getting into the mind of Chris Kirkpatrick. I had Freddie Prinze Jr. on the show.
I watched that interview. Fantastic. I didn't even know he worked for WWE. I had no clue.
I think a lot of people don't realize that he worked for him twice.
Wow. Yeah. And it's amazing to hear him talk about it and really get into backstage of what goes on, And
you heard him say it in that interview. If it wasn't for him being there, Jeff Hardy might not have been the champion.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was like, he was like rah right behind Jeff Hardy, like pushing him all the way to the top.
Wow. Now here's the thing. When did you really get into wrestling? Was that since you were a kid?
I really got into it in like 98, the Attitude Era. I was aware of it in the 80s. I was aware of it. It would be on at my grandparents' house. And like, it's not that my grandpa was a huge wrestling fan, but he just loved having sports on the TV. Okay. So I was aware of it in the late 80s, but it was 98 when I became like a mega fan. Yeah. And when I become passionate about something, I dive all the way in. Like I don't check.
Completely obsessed.
Water. I just dive all the way in. And it was Austin McMahon that was the big storyline at the time. Actually, the way this happened was one of my very best friends at the time. His name was also Vince. And we did this crazy thing in the 90s called talking on the phone. Wild, I know, right?
Sounds fire to me. Yeah.
It's weird. So we would talk on the phone all the time because he lived one town over and we didn't get to see each other all that often. So we talk on the phone all the time, but I knew on Monday nights at 9:00, our phone call would abruptly come to an end because Raw was starting. Yeah. And I remember one Monday night going, oh, we're not really, done with this conversation. All right, I'll put it on and we can just kind of keep talking. And it sucked me right in. I was like, oh man, like I love all of this. And I was on the high school wrestling team at the time. And I actually think that's why I wasn't into pro wrestling, because when you're a high school wrestler, you're told what we do in here is real. Right. What you see on TV, that stuff's fake. Yeah. And it actually, like me liking pro wrestling, I think made me a better amateur wrestler.
Yeah. I mean, you got into wrestling at the time it became a phenomenon. Like it was pop culture. Yeah. Stone Cold Steve Austin, the McMahon storyline, which really made it explode. Did you watch the WCW at all? Were you into the Monday Night Wars thing?
Yeah, I would flick. Raw was always my first choice. Yeah, and then I would flick over to Nitro, or I loved what Nitro was doing with the Cruiserweight Hour. Yeah, yeah. I loved that we could watch like an hour of Cruiserweights, then get into Raw. Yep. But I was in high school at the time, so this was the point in your life where if you loved something If you loved a baseball team or a football team, you wore their, their shirts, their jerseys. If you liked wrestling, you were wearing the DX shirts or the Austin 316 shirts. And if you would spot someone else in your high school that you had no idea was a wrestling fan wearing one of those shirts, you're like, oh my God, did we just become best friends? It's like that scene from Step Brothers. Yeah.
Step Brothers. Yep. And here's the thing. I have the DX shirt, the one with the 2 words, suck it. I got the Austin 316 to this day. To this day, people still say, "Hey, what up, man?" for the DX shirt.
Of course.
That's how big wrestling was, man.
I think wrestling has a really big nostalgic factor, right? And I think that, we can all agree that wrestling is cyclical for a lot of people. Maybe you were a huge fan of the Attitude Era and, you don't really watch it much now.
Right.
But if you see like a Just Bring It shirt or a DX shirt or an Austin 316 shirt,
you get the feels.
Those fond memories of that time of your life.
The tube TV, non-HD television. And man, if I was into it in the 90s, big time. I mean, we're talking like early 90s, Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect. And then Attitude Era, I was in love with as well. But something about those early 90s that just keep me going back to that, especially when the network came out. Oh my God. It was over for me. I still watch, not like when the Rumble was coming up. I'll go back to the old Rumbles, watch them over again. So early 90s was more my thing. But
wrestling was not a big thing in my house. My dad was very angry that I was a wrestling fan.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
To the point where we had a TV upstairs, the main TV, and then the TV downstairs. And I would watch it downstairs. I'd have to put the volume really low and I'd have to do that trick that we all did. Usually it's like when you're watching the Playboy channel or something, but I would do that last channel trick. So if I heard my dad coming down the stairs, all of a sudden, I was just watching the Maple Leafs game. Can't believe it's 3-0. And he's like, no, I heard what you were watching. I will not stand with this. I'm like, come on, Dad. It's okay.
Did he not like it because it was fake, or was it the content?
It was the content. Yeah.
Yeah.
He what the women were wearing or not wearing.
The sable, bro.
Right. It was that.
Strings,
It was the fact that Austin was flipping off his boss. I was 15. My parents didn't want to hear "suck it." I remember my dad one time standing arms crossed in front of the TV being like, "You are not going to watch this." And I'm like, can you move? I can't see what's happening.
Move that one arm a little bit. Austin's on.
Eventually they came around, but the fact that I was a backyard wrestler in high school they were not happy.
Bro, everyone was a backyard wrestler
at that time. So much so that WWE had the "don't try this at home" before every episode.
I still have VHS tapes of me and my buddies in the backyard wrestling.
Yep.
And some of them were real stiff. Like some of my boys would actually hit, and then some would be extra fake. Dude, I was always afraid to face my boy who was the extra stiff competitor, man. He would beat my ass, and we had ladders. Dude, backyard wrestling, I didn't know it was that much of a thing. For real.
I look back at some of the stuff we did and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so grateful I'm not paralyzed. We did some ridiculous, stupid stuff. And I had no fear.
Trampoline wrestling was probably the most dangerous.
Oh, geez. Yeah. If you ended up flying off that trampoline,
over.
Who knows what would happen?
All right. What do you think? Hold on. This is my sister, by the way. Hold on. Vinny was a backyard wrestler. And he would make film segments at 10 years old. We would do little promos.
She was your camera operator.
The camera operator, and then we had the two guys. Back then, we just had a camera, so we would have two guys standing next to the camera, being the announcers, and they would have to follow the cameraman.
Same.
Yeah.
One guy that was on camera was one of the commentators, and someone else would just kind of be next to him, running around.
One commentator extra loud, distorted, because he's the cameraman.
Yes.
Those are fun times, bro. All right. Current product. Shoot on it. Go. What do you think?
Look, I'm really grateful that wrestling still continues right now because it's a weird time in the world. And I feel like wrestling is up there with death and taxes now. They're just it's something that's not going anywhere. Because when the pandemic started last March, it was a very rough transition.
It was, man.
Remember the first episode of Raw where they were just like, we're going to replay the Royal Rumble for 2 hours and hope you don't notice.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting kind of seeing AEW take the lead on this. WWE basically said, we're going to point the cameras on the crowd and show you there's nobody here.
Yeah.
And AEW went, we're going to point the camera at the ring in the entranceway and not show you that there's nobody here.
Correct.
And it was really interesting that AEW put the focus on, I think, what was important. And then WWE very quickly made that adjustment. I mean, look, nobody could have guessed that we'd be 10 months into this thing and it'd still be happening.
Yeah.
Nobody guessed. I mean, it'll still be happening for several more months.
Yeah.
So I will say that the current product, I think, needs to have like an asterisk next to it. Because no one's going to be looking at this year's Royal Rumble or WrestleMania 10, 15, 20 years from now and going, oh man, those were some of the greatest memories. Sure, there were some great moments from it, but it was Hurricane Helms that said this to me, and he said it best. Watching wrestling with no crowd is like watching a comedian with no crowd. Like,
it's true, man.
What's funny? What hits? I don't know. And that's exactly what's happening with wrestling right now. So I don't think it's completely fair to look at what's going on with the product right now and going, oh, this sucks. This is terrible. Because sure, maybe some stuff isn't up to our expectations or our standards,
right?
But it can't be. It absolutely can't be. It's such a strange, weird time.
What do you think of the Thunderdome?
I think the WWE's done a really good job of making it look good and making it work, because when you compare the Thunderdome to what they had at the Performance Center for all those months, the Thunderdome is like head and shoulders above that. So
it makes it feel filled, you know?
Yeah. And I will say, and I tweeted this out actually on Sunday, that whoever was running the audio for the Royal Rumble, like, my hat is off to them. Like, if you were in the kitchen making food and you didn't know the Royal Rumble was on, it sounded like normal wrestling. Like, they had the yes chants when Daniel Bryan was hitting the kicks. They had like the "this is awesome" chant.
They had the holy shit chant.
Did you notice that? Believe. Yeah,
they had that.
So they did a really good job of making it feel as normal as possible. Where when you watch back WrestleMania from last year, and I actually think they did a really, really good job of making WrestleMania work in the weird COVID time that we're in right now.
Yeah.
But it's weird hearing them, like, every footstep in the ring, and you're hearing the trash talking, and it was just a really weird thing.
Especially the screaming, you know, when they were selling and the screams were too much. And for some reason, I would like cringe a lot of times when it was too quiet. I did not like that at all, man. AEW at least had wrestlers and employees in the front screaming at the top of their lungs, and it made it feel better.
Yeah. And I think that AEW also has a lot of workers that had come straight from the indies. So guys that, you know, maybe they hadn't worked in front of nobody before, but, you know, some of those indie guys maybe have worked in front of 30 or 40 or 50 people.
Yeah.
So that was maybe they were a little bit more prepared for it.
Okay. You need to tell me the story. All right. We're gonna shift from wrestling for 1 second. I told you backstage my idol Sylvester Stallone. All right. And that's been in the back of my mind since you told me. What was it like meeting Sylvester Stallone? So, I want to know what you felt so I can feel it.
I'll tell you the story of how this happened, because I was not expecting to meet Sylvester Stallone. Okay. And I was not expecting to interview Sylvester Stallone. So this was about 1.5 years ago. It was when the latest Rambo movie came out.
Yes.
And the daughter, the girl in the movie, was coming to Miami to do interviews. So I thought, great. So I prepared. I watched the movie. I prepared for the interview with her. And then I got a phone call from the movie studio, and they said, "How close are you?" And I said, "Oh, I'm there in like 10 minutes. Like, I think I'm like going to be pretty early." And they said, "Okay, like, get here as quickly as you can." I'm like, "All right, okay." So these interviews are usually done in a hotel. So anytime you see these celebrity interviews, the celebrity sits in the hotel room, and then different journalists just cycle in and out, like in 4 or 5 minutes, like rotating in and out. So as soon as I get off the elevator in this hotel, there's the movie rep waiting for me. And they're like, "Are you ready to go?" And I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, let's go. And they said, I've pulled some strings and we're going to get you in with Stallone. I'm like, what? Like when? Like right now. I'm like, what do you mean? Like right now? And like walked me up to the door, and like the other journalist was coming out and they're like, all right, you're on. I'm like, oh, so I had zero time to prepare for this.
Wow.
And I went in and there's Stallone sitting there and he's next to, his co-star in the film. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is happening. So all the questions that I had for his co-star, the daughter in the film, are gone out the window. And it was amazing. And the thing about him is he has this youthful energy about him.
Yeah.
And he has like really, this is going to sound strange, but he has very youthful looking eyes. When you look into his eyes, you feel like you're looking into the eyes of like a 20-year-old. And I shook his hand, and dude is so strong, right? And I said, man, like you're looking great. And he paid me a compliment. He's like, hey, you look like you've been in the gym. And I'm like, so that's just Stallone knows I work out. This is amazing. But there's actually a few things in that interview that I'll never forget. I asked his co-star, I said, what's one piece of advice that Stallone gave you that you'll remember forever? And her and Stallone started answering that question. But the piece of advice was that movies live on forever. Like movies are your legacy. And I never really thought about it that way. Like in the day when you're filming it, it's just a scene. It's just a scene. Tomorrow you'll do another scene. The day after that, you'll do another one. But Stallone's saying what you do now will last forever. And you need to go into it with the mindset that what you're doing now is so incredibly important for your legacy 10 and 20 and 30 and 100 years from now, which is the exact opposite of how we create content in television and radio and certainly, YouTube, where this exists in this moment. And unless, you or I do something absolutely, completely ridiculous that makes us look like an ass that'll go viral, this moment will just exist in this moment. And that was a really cool thing for him to hear or for him to say. And at the end of the interview, I said, Rocky always has such great words of wisdom. Yes. And I'm really curious, what advice or what would Rocky say if he met John Rambo? And he was like, oh, man, you put me on the spot. I don't know, man. And he finally gave me some answer, but it was like, I stumped Stallone with a question I made up on the top of my head.
He curled the lips up when you know what I'm saying? He did the Rocky lip curl.
Of it. It was really cool that I
got to see it.
Because I didn't, like I said, I didn't prepare for this interview, and it's one of my favorite interviews I've ever done.
That's so awesome, man. Sylvester Stallone. And I mean, going back to your interviewing here, you've interviewed some of the greats. The Rock.
Yeah.
Which how many times you interviewed The Rock, was it?
I may have interviewed The Rock 9 times.
9 times. 9.
9 times.
Bro, John Cena.
Yeah, it was Fast and Furious 6, Pain and Gain. Fast and Furious 6. My first interview with The Rock was backstage for Raw. So being a massive I was such a huge Rock fan in the late 90s. Like I dressed up as The Rock for Halloween one year.
Yeah.
I would ask people a question in my high school just so I could say, it doesn't matter what you think. Like I was that guy. So to be able to meet The Rock, and then The Rock actually did that to me one time. Yeah, it doesn't matter to me. So
he seems like a really cool guy, like down to earth, genuine.
Yeah, they always say you shouldn't meet your heroes, but if your hero's The Rock, you should 1000% meet your hero, because he's kind, he's funny, he's charismatic, but more importantly, he's self-aware enough to know that he's one of the biggest stars in the world.
Absolutely.
And that this moment's important for you.
Right.
And a lot of celebrities just look at the interviews as like, all right, what's in it for me? Like, where can I promote my film or book or whatever it happens to be?
Right.
Rock appreciates that he's a big enough star that this means something for you. So he turns the moment around and makes it important for you. Like he'll pay you a compliment, or maybe he'll poke a little fun at you, but he makes it a memorable exchange every single time. And that's awesome. rare quality to see in a celebrity,
especially from a star that big, you know what I mean? Like The Rock.
Yeah.
Dude. All right.
And
So
he has presence about him. Like when he walks down the hall and you're waiting to interview him, it's like he's a big man.
He's huge.
With a huge like energy that just like comes off of him.
Just in his smile. You know what I'm saying? He's got that big smile. It lights up a room. Yeah. So I mean, you did The Rock 9 times. John Cena.
John Cena.
Kurt Angle. MJF. Cody.
Sure.
Moxley, Jericho.
Yeah.
Jericho.
And then, I mean, those are just the wrestling interviews. And then you've also got like Denzel Washington, Leonardo DiCaprio, Steven Spielberg, Meryl Streep, Sandra Bullock. It's been look, it is not lost on me how amazing it is to be able to share just a little bit of time with people who are at the very, very top of their game.
Right. Leo, tell me a little bit about Leo.
I interviewed him.
I think he's the best. He's the best.
I interviewed him for The Revenant. It was him and Tom Hardy sitting next to each other for this interview.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It was he has a real presence about him too.
Yeah.
And I mean, there may not be a better actor in that like generation, like that age range than him. Like how good was he in Wolf of Wall Street? How good was he?
Oh, that was incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and
it
of
was
course,
funny.
I mean Titanic, that's the one that really
I'll never forget
shot him off.
When the interview ended, I said, "Can we take a photo?" And he's like, "Sure, yeah, of course." So it's me, Tom Hardy, and Leo. And right before they take the picture, Leo goes, "Everybody say Instagram." He's like, I know exactly what's happening here.
I mean, he probably gets that so much. But, Leo's the type of guy that's not really in the public eye that much.
Yeah, and he doesn't do a ton of interviews, but I think he was on this real hard Oscar push that it was like, the more publicity you could do, the better.
Right.
We had like a little moment where, because in that movie, he like actually eats an actual bison liver. So they had there's a scene in the movie where he like carves open the bison, like ends up sleeping in it. And they'd prepared like this gelatin bison liver. And he, on the actual day, he took the actual bison liver and like,
he really did it. I mean, that
Yes.
was the real thing.
And he says like, the reaction you see on my face is the real reaction because it's like a strange, like rush of weird taste that you've never had before.
That alone should have, awarded him the Oscar.
That's probably why he won it.
Yeah.
But when I asked him that question, he just like started like, it's a weird moment. He just like starts giggling. Like he's like, when you're in these conditions, and it was like, I'm giggling with DiCaprio. This is so
literally
wild.
just having a chill session with Leo.
It was wild,
dude. I mean, you're blessed to have been able to meet these people and interview them. And you do a really good job. You guys, listen, you need to check out Chris Van Vliet's YouTube channel. Here's a screenshot of it. I got you right here, bro. I got you.
Wow.
Chris Van Vliet.
And I see the guy subscribed. See, perfect. Thank you.
And I hit the notification bell.
Oh, and you got that bell turned on.
Come on, man. I don't play games,
Vinny.
So you have over 280,000 subscribers. Okay. Now, listen to this number, Chris. I don't know if you know it or not. Listen to this number. You have over 94 million views.
It's a lot.
Think about that.
It's hard to think about that.
94 million times your videos have been played. That's incredible. That
Mostly by my mom, I would think.
Maybe a few
million,
100,000, but 94 million. That's incredible, bro. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's not lost on me, man. It's a wild thing. Like, and it's actually pretty crazy. Here we are. It's February 5th. My YouTube channel turns 10 next week.
I was going to ask you about that. When did you start the YouTube channel? So 10
years
ago.
On February 8th, 2011. And I started by accident.
What happened?
I started completely by accident. So I had like a smaller YouTube channel that was under a completely different name because when I was working for the MTV2 station, I wasn't sure if we were allowed to put these videos on YouTube. So I wanted more people to see them. So I just created this other account, like this, completely silly name, Dirty Pirate Hooker 123. Which I think still exists, so you can go look this up.
I can't laugh at your name. I'll tell you what my name was after the story. Go ahead.
And then I was like, I needed to be something that like has no link to me because I was going to post these videos from our TV show on there.
Right.
And then in 2011, I just created a YouTube channel strictly as a place for these interviews to live. So I was like, I did a great interview with some of the early wrestling interviews were like Jack Swagger, or Mick Foley, Mr. Kennedy. I did these interviews and I'm like, well, first of all, we only aired 20 seconds on TV. Second of all, the only people that saw it are the people that watched TV at that exact moment.
Right.
What about the other 10, 15, 20 minutes of this interview?
Yeah.
So I created this YouTube channel as a place for those videos to live and a place where people could find them at any point in time. So I did not go into this thinking I'm going to be a YouTuber. I went into this thinking I'm going to have this like online cloud storage for these interviews.
Like a diary of some sort,
yeah.
right?
And then I had a few. The first interview that really popped was an interview I did with The Miz.
Okay.
He was about to throw out the first pitch at Progressive Field where the Cleveland Indians play.
Right.
And I did a quick interview with him, like about throwing out the first pitch. And it was right after the Punk pipe bomb had happened.
Oh, yeah.
And he called it the most interesting thing in wrestling since the Attitude Era. I was like, oh, yeah, sure. It sounds good. And he also told me that he was concussed at the end of WrestleMania 27 and doesn't remember any of it. Like he was just telling me stuff off the cuff. And I didn't think anything of it. Put the video up online. And I would normally get like few hundred views, most of them actually being from my mom at the time. And I woke up the next day and it had 6,000 views. And I was like, excuse me, what?
Yeah.
And I guess I figured out that some website found this video randomly and found those little pieces of news nuggets in there.
Right.
And posted it on their website. And then the next day it had 36,000 views. And I was like, oh
wow.
I think we're onto something here. And that's what really started, like the light bulb went off in my head that if we got a nugget of information, whether it was from a wrestler or from someone else, and we put it online here, the channel could really start to grow. Then I did interviews with the Hunger Games cast, the Twilight cast, Justice League, like getting those big high profile names from those big high profile blockbusters also really started to build some momentum.
Did you get any pushback for putting those interviews on your YouTube channel, or did they encourage it after it started taking off?
I mean, this is 2011 when YouTube wasn't really the crazy, huge website that it is now.
Right.
So I was just doing it and no one really said anything. And like, there were a lot of times when there would be like this interview I did with Robert Pattinson from the last Twilight movie, like still gets like 100,000 views a month.
Wow.
Because he's just, he's that big of a star and the fans are that passionate about him.
Right. That's incredible.
Yeah,
it's incredible that videos that old still get that many views.
Oh, I have this viral moment, which I'm sure people watching have seen with Anne Hathaway.
Okay.
So I'll set this up for you. She's doing this movie called One Day. She's doing interviews for this movie called One Day, which is like a dramatic, like romantic movie. But the first photos of her as Catwoman have just come out.
Okay.
When she was going to be Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises. So I'm like, I got to figure out a way to work in like this Catwoman question into this interview. So I didn't really think out what the question would be, but I'm just like, I need to ask her about these photos because, the whole internet's talking about them. So I set it up by going, hey, these first photos of you as Catwoman came out. Like, how do you fit into that suit? And she's like, oh, I've been working out hard and, talking about her workout a little bit. And I'm like, I mean, you're in incredible shape. Like, how much weight did you lose to get into shape for this role? And she's like, what a forward young man you are. How much weight did I lose? And I'm like, I'm not saying you need to lose weight. She's like, and anyway, it's a fun moment because she's like fake offended.
Gotcha.
But that has like millions of views.
Wow.
And I still get like people that are hitting me up about that. Like that happened 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible, man. So you have a really, really successful YouTube channel. And you started a podcast. Right?
Yeah. My podcast it's now a year and a half old, but I just renamed it to Insight. Before that, it was the Chris Van Vliet Show. But I wanted a name that reflected what the show was really about. Because, I mean, calling it the Chris Van Vliet Show is kind of like patting myself on the back.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I'm not even like, sure, I might be the person that's asking the questions, but the show is certainly not about me. It's about shining a spotlight on my guests and like the insights that they get and like reverse engineering their habits and techniques. So I renamed it at the start of this year to Insight with Chris Van Vliet. And honestly, kind of like the YouTube story, I started my podcast just as a place for like the audio from these interviews to live. Right. Because I understand that like, it's a lot to ask someone to watch an hour-long video on YouTube. Man. Right. Like that's a lot. And I see that, I can see most people like click out after 10 or 20 minutes. I get that. Right. In a podcast, people will listen to the entire thing. So I just wanted to put it on the podcast as an option. Like, hey, if you want to listen to this while you're driving or working out or whatever, you can. And that's the whole reason it started.
Anthony, how are you, buddy?
Vinny.
We got Brian Hippie says Pirate Hooker channel still exists. Okay.
Yeah, you're probably seeing. I'm trying to think of the other. Oh, I did an interview with Andrew McMahon from. Remember Something Corporate, Jack's Mannequin?
Yeah.
It's on the Dirty Pirate channel.
Duarte says this is awesome, and oh Canada, Chris.
Oh Canada, greatest country on earth.
That's awesome, man.
And by the way, I have all these belts here.
Yes. Let's do that. We have a lot of belt collectors that watch the show because we do a lot of shows on belt collecting.
Yeah.
What do you got, Chris?
All right.
What do you got?
Where should I begin?
Oh man, we got a collection like that.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I guess there's that one there, but I don't know if that one really counts. I'll start with a really basic one.
Okay, I'm gonna put you on full screen, Chris. Okay.
Everybody's seen this belt.
Okay.
Very basic.
World heavyweight there.
Yeah. Current championship.
All right.
That is. All right, so there's one. How about this one?
Okay. Got the big gold there. Now I see you got it signed. Who do we got here?
I'm next.
Get out of here, bro.
And this was actually given to me from Bill Goldberg's manager, who's a good friend of mine.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's one.
And he made sure you're not getting another autograph on that strap. He took the whole thing up. He's like,
that was the plan,
listen,
right?
Yeah. Listen, Chris, you ain't getting that signed by anybody else.
The plan was I wanted to get every championship. And I don't know if I'm still on this. I don't know if I'm still on this path, but I wanted to get every championship. And then I wanted to get it signed by the person who, in my mind, was best known for that championship.
Okay. Got you.
But with that said, this next one is, it's going to bother people because it's one of my favorite championships.
No, I love that championship, man.
Right. But look who I got it signed by.
Who signed it? Who is that? Mr.
Rob Van
Dam.
But people will go, well, he didn't actually hold this belt in ECW. He didn't hold it till ECW got bought by WWE. But I mean, when you think of ECW, I mean, Rob Van Dam is definitely one of the top people who come to mind.
Yeah, he was a G in ECW, absolutely.
We also got real throwback here.
Ooh, the Backlund.
The Backlund. It's from
Backlund.
Belts.
Yes. That's a beautiful belt, man.
So bright here.
That's a gorgeous belt. It's gorgeous. I've always loved it.
And we got one more.
All right. What do you got?
We got one more, but I love this belt, but there's a big story behind it. So I think I think it's the best belt that WWE ever made.
Absolutely.
And I got it autographed, but look what happened.
Smeared a little bit.
I've moved twice since I got this autographed. And I moved from Florida where it was very humid and hot. And this was, with a paint pen. So yeah, it smudged a little bit, but yeah.
Hulkamania, but you could still read it though.
Oh no, you could definitely read it.
Still good.
And what's funny is when I met Hogan to get this autograph, I brought a silver Sharpie.
Okay.
And he goes, I don't know if this is going to work, brother. So he puts the first line of the H with the silver Sharpie, my silver Sharpie.
Yeah.
And he goes, nope, not going to work. I'm like, oh. So he pulls out his paint pen, signs it up. Hogan's great. Hogan knows all about autographs. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Hulk Hogan, brother. So right before he signs it, he goes, are you getting other people to sign this? I said, no, this is yours. He's like, oh, I'm going to write all over it then, bro. All right. So, sure enough, he wrote
Hulkamania on one side, Hall of Fame 05.
Hall of Fame 05, Hulkamania.
Hogan
gets it. Like Hogan.
I have Hogan's autograph on the Thunder Lips replica cape from Rocky.
Oh,
and he signs it, Thunder Lips, Hulk Hogan, and I have that in a frame.
So I can completely relate because I also got him to autograph this poster right here because I was there. It's my favorite match of all time. Rock Hogan, WrestleMania 18. I was there. I was 18 years old when this happened.
Yeah.
So I unroll the poster. I say, I need you to autograph this.
What a wonderful match that was. The crowd.
He signed that one as Hollywood Hogan.
Yeah.
Because, this is the great thing about him, right? Like, as he understands, like, that's a different character.
Yes. Thunder Lips, Hollywood Hogan. You got the Immortal Hulk Hogan.
So the cool thing about this, I'm telling him, like, that match meant so much to me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I said, did you know the NWO was going to turn on you at the end? He goes, I had no idea, brother. I'm like, what do you mean? Because it was so wild, right? The crowd turned on Hogan, or turned on Rock, and were cheering for Hogan. Yeah. He said at the end of the match, Mike Chioda told him to stay in the ring. And he's like, that's weird. Like, I didn't win. Why would I stay in the ring? Uh-huh. And they called an audible in the back. And Vince saw how over Hogan was and sent out the NWO to beat him up so that Hogan could be red and yellow.
Wow.
And then the worst thing about this is we didn't get this story on camera. We were talking off camera before when he told that part of the story.
Oh, and he really didn't know. Legit. Like, that was
what he said. It's wrestling, so who knows? But
who knows, right?
And he said that Vince wanted him to be in the red and yellow, so he left Toronto, borrowed Vince's private jet to fly to Tampa to look for a box in his house with the red and yellow stuff, which he hadn't worn at that point in years. Mm-hmm. Hoped it would fit, and then flew back to Canada for a Raw the next day.
Wow. Now that's a nugget right there, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, I got to interview Hogan again so he can tell me that story.
That's amazing.
Get that on camera somewhere.
So you were in AEW for a little bit. You were doing the backstage interviewing. What happened there? It seemed like it was only for a short amount of time.
And it was. Yeah, I was invited to be part of the first episode. And that was really all it was going to be.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
So they invited me to be part of the first episode. They reached out and said, we'd love for you to be part of the first episode, October 2nd, Washington, D.C. And I'm just like, yes. Like, let's do it. Like, come on. Like, to be.
What was the energy like back there, man?
It was pretty cool. And to be just like a tiny little minuscule part of this historic show, like the first time wrestling's on TNT in almost 20 years.
Yeah.
First ever, AEW televised show. Not only was I backstage, I was also at the production meeting the night before, which was so cool. Like, you're sitting at this production meeting, and at the head of the room is Cody and Tony Khan and the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, like, going through the rundown of like, and this is going to happen and this is going to happen. It was really cool being behind the scenes and watching the whole show come together from paper to actually seeing it on screen.
Live screen. Yeah.
The energy was, people were excited.
Brian has a question for you. Any dream interviews you still want to get, Chris?
Like, so many. Yeah. So many. And the very top of that list is Vince McMahon, which I don't think.
Dude.
I don't think it's possible, but I'm going to keep putting it out into the universe and hope that it is. But
anything's possible, Chris. I mean, you're living proof. Vince McMahon, though, that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
He doesn't really do a lot of interviews, but I want to interview Vince McMahon, like, the person. Like, obviously, you and I wouldn't be sitting here right now if it wasn't for Vince McMahon and his creative genius.
Correct.
But I'm fascinated. Like, what's Vince McMahon's workout look like? What's Vince McMahon's morning routine look like? Like, what's Vince McMahon's? I want to learn all these things because whatever makes him tick is something that we need to bottle. And whether it's wrestling or it's something else, we need to bottle this genius up.
Mm-hmm. Vince McMahon, he's always been a weird character to me. I see him as never, ever, ever spending time with family. At all. I see him as a workaholic, never home. But that's just my thought process of Vince McMahon.
I'm sure he is. Yeah, I'm sure
I see him living at the office. All right. So, out of all the interviews you've done so far, what's the one that's meant the most to you?
The one that meant the most to me, I'm going to give you two, actually.
Okay.
Because at the very top of that list for years was The Rock. And the fact that I got The Rock, he was promoting a lot of films at this time. I got him in 2012 for the first time. Mm-hmm. The fact that I got The Rock in a wrestling setting. I got him backstage at Raw in Cleveland, Ohio at the Q Arena. And he was promoting his match with John Cena. And I got him for like 6 minutes, which was so cool. So that one meant the most to me. Like, from the second he walked in the room, he just brought with him this massive energy. He shook everybody's hand in the room before he got to work. After it was me and two other journalists that did interviews at that time. After that was done, he stayed and took pictures and signed autographs for everybody.
Right.
That one meant the most. And the fact that I still have like this professional relationship with The Rock, like, you know, I've interviewed him as many times as I have now. When I see him, he's like, "Oh, hey, Chris, how are you?" And I'm like,
dude, that's nuts.
What?
That's nuts.
He gave me the middle finger on live TV. Yeah. So
that's a blessing.
That one for sure. And also because of how much The Rock meant to me, but also like to be able to be in my 30s now and look at how far The Rock has come from, you know, when we knew him 20 years ago to what he's grown into. I mean, even The Rock that I interviewed 9 years ago for the first time in 2012, he's evolved and changed so much into this businessman, and it's really inspiring to see. So Rock for sure. And then after I interviewed Rock, I wanted to interview Tom Cruise. And Tom Cruise was like I think he's so talented.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Tom Cruise is the last remaining bona fide like movie star.
Like mega movie star.
Right. So I got to interview Tom Cruise for the last Mission Impossible movie. It was on the red carpet.
I saw the picture of that. Yeah.
In Paris, and the Eiffel Tower is right behind us.
Wow.
And you know, we had a great conversation about like why he's drawn to these roles, what his legacy is. And then afterwards I said, "Mind if we took a photo?" "Of course, I'd love to take a photo." And there's me and Tom Cruise.
A Tom Cruise smile.
Arms around each other. Eiffel Tower behind us.
Oh.
Like that one was pretty special too.
We got Anthony. He wants to know, have you ever interviewed Triple H?
No, I'd like to. Definitely.
Right.
I was a huge Triple H fan.
Me too.
2000, 2001.
Right.
I had a Triple H poster on my bedroom wall, which, yeah, try explaining that to your friends who don't like wrestling. You've got a man in black spandex underwear with his arms on his hips staring at you.
Or doing the DX.
I would love to interview him.
We got worst or most awkward interview.
Oh, I mean, it's got to be MJF, right? MJF.
Dude, it was. I agree.
He's the worst.
Man, he's terrible, isn't he? He's an ass.
He is awful.
All right. So we went through your belt collection. Here's the thing. We know with the virus and all that, it's kind of, you know, put everything on pause.
Sure.
Right. When this pandemic is over, where would you like to see your career go?
Oh, well, I don't think it's pandemic dependent or not. Like I want it to just continue to keep going up. Like my goal every day is to be excited for what I'm going to do that day and then be proud of what I've accomplished at the end of that day. And I just want more in every situation. I want to be more and I want to do more in every single situation. So I would like to host another national TV show. I'd like to be able to say, "Hey, Vinny, turn on Discovery Channel at 8 o'clock or turn on CBS at 9 o'clock or something like that." I want to do that. I want to host another national show. And I want my YouTube channel to continue to grow. So if anybody's watching this and hasn't subscribed, and even though you put it up on the screen.
Listen, we're going to do that right now. We're going to segue into this screenshot. Boom.
Oh, there wow. Look at this.
Come on. So
I'm at, what's it say? 282,000 subscribers. It'd be so great to end this year with that first number being a 3.
Let's get you at 300,000, man. If you guys haven't subscribed, go to his YouTube channel, Chris Van Vliet. Subscribe, hit that notification bell. He gets some really, really dope interviews. Like right up here, you see the Chris Kirkpatrick, you see the Freddie Prinze Jr., which is a fantastic interview, by the way.
Paige Van Zandt fighting in her first bare knuckle fight in like an hour. And we got her, 2 days ago before the fight.
Dude. Guys, listen.
I'm really excited by the growth of my podcast. Like
it's great.
Well, thank you. But it's just exciting knowing that like we live in a time now where if you have a message and you have the want to get it out there and the passion to do it, you can. Yeah. And that's what's super exciting because look what we're doing right now. We're live right now to the world. 10 years ago, if you wanted to be live to the world, you had to own a TV station.
Right. And I'm in a wrestling ring. Isn't this crazy, Chris?
In a very comfortable looking chair, too.
No, technology is incredible. You can be in different parts of the world, be live, speaking.
Do we have the same mic?
Is it the Shure SM7B?
Shure SM7B?
Come on, man. Yeah. I just switched to it.
Oh, isn't it so good?
It's fantastic. I love it.
I was wondering what I was doing before I had this thing.
No, you need this microphone. If you're into podcasting or just recording in general, get the Shure SM7B.
Don't worry about how much it costs. That doesn't matter.
It's actually worth the money. It's worth.
It is worth the money, but like most people are like, "Oh, buy a mic that's $50." Then don't just buy this mic. Don't worry about how much it costs.
My sister, of course, Chris. Has anyone ever told you that you have great teeth?
That is very kind. Thank you. They're good at they're good for chewing things.
Chris, you are the man, and I really appreciate you being here with me. I had a blast.
You're the man. Vinny Vegas.
Listen, man.
Everybody needs to subscribe to your channel.
Let's go. Pounding the meats. Pounding the meat.
Yeah. Plug your channel. What are we doing?
Now, listen, I have to ask you something. When you got the email, all right, from Vinny at poundingthemeat.com, were you nervous before you?
Yeah, I was like, oh, you've been looking at my search history. Yeah.
Bro, it's been awesome. But before we go, I want to play a quick trailer of next week's live interview. Okay. And you may know him, Chris.
Uh-oh.
This may be familiar for you. So I kind of want you to check this out. All right. And hold on, here it is. Let's get this rolling.
I don't know where the fuck you people come from. I don't know where they grow you. If I am sitting here and I anger you so much, then I'm doing my job. And I do it with a smile on my face, and I just don't give a shit what you have to say. Cry all you want. People think I'm bitching. People think I'm moaning. Monday Night Raw is still in shambles. SmackDown Live is hit or miss every other week. If I don't ask questions, who the will? I don't understand why you want me to sit there and paint this beautiful picture of a moonlit sky, starry night, crickets gently chirping in the background while you're holding your girl's hand, walking down a field of bedded roses. You. I'm not here to do that. If you don't like what I have to say, and most of the time what I have to say is the truth, you can suck my. Any other questions? Go check it out.
JD from NY Tours.
There's definitely going to be a lot more profanity on next week's show than there was on this one. It's amazing that he ended that last line, "Suck my D," and then it's pounding the meat. It's like a perfect combination here.
I thought it was pretty good, but he makes me laugh, man. And I saw your interview with him, and it was more of a low-key JD.
Well, I think that, and the thing that you need to realize is the character that you see on his YouTube channel is in fact a character. I mean, it's an amped up version of himself. Right. I interviewed, like JD, the human who likes drinking beer.
Yeah.
Loves craft beer. You should probably get some craft beer.
Yes. I told him, listen, we're drinking on the show. We'll have a drink together. But be JD the character. We need you. We need you.
Boy.
Let's see what happens. You know what I'm saying? So that's next week, guys. Pounding the Meat. It'll be on our YouTube and in our Facebook. You can get to our YouTube, poundingthemeat.com. Takes you right there. Subscribe and hit that notification bell. Once again, Mr. Chris Van Vliet. Let's go. Subscribe to Mr. Chris Van Vliet.
Vinny, I had such a blast. Thank you.
Me too, man. Absolutely.
And I want to acknowledge you. You're very good at what you do. You're very good at setting the stage, making this like just a fun time. Like what better way to spend a Friday night than by pounding your meat?
Pounding the meat, baby. Listen, we'll see you guys next week, 8:00 live. This was Chris Van Vliet. I'm Vinny Vegas. We'll see you next week. Peace out.
Woo!